live stream. My name's Pira Draculea, and tonight we are working on some Noah's Archipelago stuff. Tonight it's going to be the coloring book project, and hopefully we don't have any issues with the stream like we had on Tuesday. Anyways, there's my streaming schedule for anyone. So this book is the A to Z of Noah's job history, wherein Noah is talking about his past jobs to his daughter Ursula because she's got a homework assignment. So we've got a couple jobs, possibly three, that we're going to do today. First up, cake decorator, then reindeer minder. And if we run into time, we'll have, or if we still have time at the end, I'm mixing up my words, then we will do the time that Noah was a movie extra. And when I say time, I mean singular because, well, there he is waving at the camera, which extras are not supposed to do. But, anyways, let's get right into it with his cake decorating days. Have had this hinted at here and there in when I was doing it as a webcomic, more about like bakery stuff. But, the family doing some gingerbread around Christmas, and Noah builds an entire like gingerbread Coney Island and things like that. So it's one of his passions is cooking and whatnot. I don't know about passion so much as something he's good at that he does a lot. Um, so we are working with Staedtler pigment liners. This is well, I think it's supposed to be smooth Bristol board, and we're going to have a variety of different line weights, but because Noah's face is so huge in this one, we are going to start with some pretty big weights to get the major outlines, and then we'll do little like patterns in his face and all that jazz towards the end. So, and always picture Noah when he's working on a cake, sort of doing the sticking the tongue out type of thing. So, but yeah, so I mentioned about Tuesday, in case anyone was in. Oh, hello, Gabriel. I see message retracted. Anyways, welcome to the stream. So, for anyone who was around on Tuesday and may have wondered what happened to the stream, well, I also wonder that. I kind of went in the middle of people chatting to suddenly nothing moving. My laptop, because I monitor the chat and the stream. What will I have after 500 years? Well, I mean, I would be very surprised if science advances to the point of us living 500 years. But if you mean my legacy, well, probably nothing at that point, honestly. Very few artists are still recognized 500 years after they pass on. Other than I suppose there will always be, some nerdy PhD art history students who will find, don't I watch Invincible? No, I don't. I actually have not heard of that show or movie. I'm not really. I watch a fair amount of YouTube, like random. Actually, what I was just watching before going live was, I think it's called Late Night Vault, and they do like history of TV shows and whatnot. I actually saw one that was talking about a show that I actually remember watching in the 90s called Caroline in the City, which was about a well, not quite middle aged, a 30 something woman cartoonist in New York. And the first season was pretty good, and then they just got stupid with the plot lines. So that's the kind of weird stuff I watch, sort of pseudo documentaries. So I must plead ignorance on that one. But I will make a note actually off the side. I've had a few people in chat say, "Oh, you should check out this or that," especially animes and whatnot. So I will make a note to have a look for Invincible. If I get a chance, I will check it out. Um, but anyways, it's kind of uh, still it's an interesting question. Obviously, I get it that that must be a reference to something from Invincible, dialogue or whatnot. But it is interesting to kind of think about um, if one will have a legacy 500 years from now, especially if you're in the arts or whatnot, because sometimes that happens where you get somebody who's fairly obscure, and then for whatever reason, some of their work survives, and then, after they're dead, they end up becoming accidentally popular or whatnot. I mean, that's kind of what happened to Van Gogh, although it was helped by the fact that his brother was an art dealer and tirelessly promoted him after kind of a little too late, but, um, it does happen sometimes that, somebody will have more impact, you know, decades, if not centuries after, they themselves are no more, and, assuming we still have universities and, art historians, looking for something to write, their thesis on, I suppose it's entirely possible that down the road somebody will be looking at this and trying to find like whatever um, trendy buzzwords are big in art history at that point and trying to do an analysis based on those buzzwords on this drawing of this strange dude with the bug eyes decorating a cake, and what did it actually mean in 21st century Canada. They will be wrong, of course. Whatever they come up with will be wrong, because that's how it always goes. But it is fun to kind of, think about what that might be. Uh, so we're getting the main lines done. I will, do finer lines because, of course, this is gonna be a coloring book and an adult coloring book. I don't mean adult in terms of, X-rated or anything, but, complicated, drawings, hard drawings, with small areas to color and whatnot. So we will divide the giant areas into small areas soon enough. And Noah's kind of got a bad angle for holding his pastry bag with the icing, but basically, hypothetically speaking, that might be because I drew it that way for like slopping icing on the top, and I thought that's not going to make for an interesting drawing. And I didn't feel like changing it. But sometimes when you have something like that, that's what ends up making it kind of interesting because it's a little weird. Um, Now, I think actually, okay, I'm gonna make a note that I need to fix his wrist, which we can do in Photoshop later. Um, but we will move on to a slightly thinner pen to start drawing in the cake, and then I'm gonna come back and fill in Noah as well. Other than, I don't know, the lack of, pupils is bothering me, so we'll do this. Um, and I like kind of using a variety of pen weights. So, actually gotten into watching, videos, this lady, who has a bakery, Happy Cakes is her channel, and it's kinda like ASMR style, like, she doesn't talk, she just decorates the cakes, and you have a view of what she's doing, and then at the end like, she'll go through, like, 9 cakes in an hour, and, then kinda does the pan over at the end of how they all turned out, and I think some of them would be, like, custom orders where somebody has specifically asked for something, and some of it's just kind of, coming up to Mother's Day, let's do a whole bunch of, uh, cakes. Shinobu 204 is asking, "What am I drawing?" And you have a pizza party on Monday with classmates. That is awesome. I love pizza. What I am drawing is my one of my characters, Noah. This is art that will go into a coloring book that I'm hoping to put out. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get it out this year. It might be in the spring, but it's the history of Noah's jobs, so various weird jobs he's had, and one of them is a cake decorator. So the idea is his 8-year-old daughter has a homework assignment at school, so she asks her dad about his jobs. Do I know Demon Slayer? I know of it. I have not had a chance to actually watch it yet. I think I have seen some of the characters. Is that the one that has the girl who has like the purple ponytail braid type of? Her name escapes me at the moment. I know somebody a while back on one of my streams was asking if I was familiar with the character. So, um, Mitsuri. Oh, I thought it was a shorter name that started with uh, R. I know there's Demon Slayer has a bunch of different characters, right? Like it's kind of like a ensemble cast. Is that correct? Um, Let me just start with that. But no, it's not one that I have had a chance to watch or read, I should say, because I'm not entirely certain if it's manga or an anime based on a manga. Your favorite Hashiras is Gyu Tomioko. Okay, I will make a note. Yeah, Tomioka. Yeah, it's my genre is kind of more like web comics and stuff lately, and then I mean, my background is kind of in reading, like newspaper funnies from back in the day, like Bloom County and Doonesbury, stuff like that. So it's a whole other world of stuff that unfortunately I have never had a chance to check out, or haven't had the time, I guess I should say, not so much the chance. Um, so. Alright. So we're starting to get a little bit of the shaping of this. And I know when I watch Happy Cakes, what she often does is this will be like almost like the kind of syrup that you put on like an ice cream sundae or whatnot, very runny icing. She usually just does it around the edge and then puts like the kind of puffball fake rose um, icing around the top, which is what Noah is doing. So we're gonna kind of change with a whole bunch of different pen widths as we go along. But I think usually this kind of rose, you would end up with a nozzle tip that has some serrations in it. So you end up with very fine sort of bumps along the way, which is what we are going to illustrate here. I've actually drawn that one in kind of the wrong position, but the nice thing is the underdrawing is a non-photo blue pencil, so I can kind of ignore it and just draw over. And then when I scan this in black and white, the blue underdrawing is going to just go away. And I'm going to ignore this one here, and then we're going to continue on with this. So now we're going to go for, let me find, I think 0.5 is probably way too thin. Yeah, maybe not. Um, Just kind of drawing off in the side to get my sizing. I think this one will work. So what I want is to show where there is kind of grooves in the icing. And then of course, because it's a coloring book, someone can shade it as they see fit. Um, yeah, some of these lines are very close together and they'll end up kind of merging when it's scanned, but this is actually going to basically go um, not quite 1 to 1 ratio, but it's going to be fair. It's being drawn fairly close to the final size. I think the final size is going to end up being like the page size will be US letter size, so 8.5 by 11 inches. There will be a bit of a border around because, of course, in a book, like if you wouldn't want this to be right in the gutter of your coloring book because it's going to be very difficult for someone to get in there and actually um, color it. So the pages will kind of have a border on them. So this will probably end up being about 7 inches by 9 inches. So it's going to be a little bit smaller than it is, but it's not going to be so small that that ends up being just completely disappeared, right? So, um, anyways, let's continue adding our little icing swirls. I think I'm going to go a little bit more like this. You're not worried about perfect accuracy on what the icing would look like or whatnot, but just more to get the vibe of that Noah is icing a cake. And of course, sprinkles. Got to have sprinkles. These are some of the ball sprinkles that are kind of the bigger nuggets of sugar, the good kind. And we will also have some of the more, law, these kind of sprinkles as well. Of course, if I was doing this as like a pen and ink, black and white illustration that was not going to be in a coloring book, I would put, shading and all that sort of jazz. But we're not going to worry about that here. Realistically, he probably wouldn't have thrown sprinkles on until he finishes putting the little rosettes all the way around the edge. But why would we let reality get in the way of a fun spread on the coloring book? So then on the sides, because these bowl type of sprinkles would tend to not stick too much into the side icing. Random post 444 says, "Wow, your art is amazing." Why, thank you. I very much appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoy it. So, kind of keep the for lack of a better term, side sprinkles a little bit smaller and lighter, ones that would more realistically stick into the icing better. And I am going to put some grooves around as well because I have noticed when I'm watching the cake decorators on YouTube that they tend to, slather the icing on and then they'll have sometimes they're like metal pieces that have different shapes cut into them for kind of a fluted effect. Sometimes it's just like the jagged edge, parallel lines, but they usually have something along those lines. So we will put sprinkles also on the side. It's easier to do. Well, you kind of have to do it now before putting in those grooves because the sprinkles would be on top of the grooves. Let me add a few of these ball type sprinkles off on the side. I forget the name of the tip, but there is a tip. I think people use it for making kind of leaf shapes out of icing, but it ends up if you kind of like drag it and pull it back, you kind of make a little thing that looks like a heart with a line down the middle. So a long time ago, I worked at a Michael's. I remember having to like restock the baking section and we'd look at all these different icing tips and go, huh, so that's how they do that. Am I drawing a coloring book? Yes. This is, well, it's the first coloring book that I started working on, although I've got another one that I'm working on, not on stream, that'll probably be out much sooner. So this one I'm thinking will be out sometime in the spring, maybe. But the main character here, Noah, is a character that I had in a webcomic, and I'm now migrating him to bigger projects, book projects, instead of webcomics. So the gist of it is that his daughter has asked him about different jobs he had in the past. So he's going to tell her in excruciatingly boring detail, as least as far as, an 8-year-old's attention span is concerned. And each page will be a different job that he had at some point. And this one is Cake Decorator. We'll see how long this page takes. Sometimes I usually get 2 done in a stream, sometimes 3. So the next one will be Reindeer Minder, uh, in a little Christmas village thing and not getting along with the reindeers. Trying to have it kind of funny as well as the art aspect. Because after all, with coloring pages, you kind of generally don't want to put anything on the back of the page. So rather than just have, you know, 30 or 50 blank left side pages, I thought, well, why don't I write a little story that goes with it? And then it kind of makes it a little more interesting, a little bit of bonus content. So, of course, then that means I really should start working on the left-hand side pages. I have, like, the main beats of the story and all that, but I haven't, sat down to actually write that or if I'm gonna have any extra little illustrations that are just black and white line work, not necessarily for coloring, although, hey, if somebody wants to color, go for it. But, all that stuff I'll have to get around to. First, I gotta remember that most of the sprinkles, they're actually just gonna kind of puddle down here at the bottom. So draw a lot more sprinkles towards the bottom here. If I was gonna be hyper realistic, which I'm obviously not, I notice when I watch videos of people doing cake decorating, they tend to throw it as they're like spinning the cake on a um, lazy Susan or whatnot. So you get like an area that's got lots of sprinkles and then not so much, and then like that. But yeah, not gonna get that detailed or that accurate. After all, I think there is kind of a balancing point between lots of detail to make it interesting, but not so much that it's like overwhelming. Definitely seen some people post pics where it's like, "Oh, I'm working on this, coloring book pages," and it's really clear that what they did was, particularly if it's, like, nature themed, where they took a photo and just ran it through a filter, and then there's, like, a zillion teeny, teeny, tiny little areas, like, I'm looking out at my window right now at my neighbor's crabapple tree, um, so if I did a coloring page that way with the filter, then there would be like every leaf would have its own little area, and that just honestly, I mean, maybe some people like that. It would almost stress me out if I opened a book and it looked like that. So I'm trying to keep that balance in mind as well. Do want to remember I've got some of those. So now let's put some grooves in because a lot of times there'll be some sort of a, you know, grooving texture around. And this is just going to be easier for me if I do it sideways. So some of this, like that's almost looking a little overkill to me. Obviously, I'm going to have to scan everything in and um, do a little tweaking in Photoshop anyways. So if I think it's overwhelming, I may, erase some of these lines at that point. Although sometimes I think what helps is differing the weight of the lines. Um, so we have done all the sprinkles with a thinner pen, but I normally at the end I'll go through and maybe not as thick as the lines in Noah's face, but some will kind of have a little thickness added in, um, and others won't. And that I think also kind of helps build it up and distinguish areas. Obviously, if somebody wants to do every one of these as a different stripe color, obviously they can. Or they can just ignore it and go, "It's a chocolate cake with chocolate icing and, the whole thing's brown." Yeah. We're getting pretty close, not quite to the halfway point on this book, but we're getting sorta close. I think probably by the end of June, maybe, or somewhere in early July, I think I'll probably film a video, not a live stream, but like a pre-recorded video that would be like a project walkthrough. So flipping through the pages that we already have done at that point and talking about that. I did one like that recently for the graphic novel I'm working on my Friday streams. Ricky B goes to sea, and then a couple months back, well, I guess like almost 3 months ago now, I did one for a different book project, Miles Marv's Pursuit of Happiness. At that point, I was about halfway through, um, that phase, the current phase of Miles's book. So it's kinda nice to have those on, record, I think, and then I can also add the links to the video descriptions so that when people stumble on these, live streams, there's a link there if they want more context about projects. So, um speaking of, like, pre-recorded videos, tomorrow I will be well, I mean, I'll be streaming, working on Ricky B Goes to Sea tomorrow night, but tomorrow in like the afternoon, let me just look at that. Is that too flat? Yeah, it doesn't quite match the curve, but we can kind of start from the bottom up as well. Um, Anyways, aside from Ricky B Goes to Sea, I recently finished one of my small sketchbooks. So I'm going to film a sketchbook tour. Should be kind of nice to finally have one of those because it's been a little while. And the problem is I tend to do, uh, hello, welcome back, Shinobu. Um, I tend to have different sketchbooks for each of my different projects, which then means that it takes forever to finish a sketchbook. So it's kind of fun to finally have a sketchbook tour that I got to film again. So we're gonna get a little bit of kind of distortion or whatever because obviously these lines are not entirely curved accurately, but you know, it's a cartoon world, so we're not too worried about that. Also at the core edge here, kind of trying to get the line a little bit showing the humps on the edge, but what I will do is add a couple sub lines in here that don't actually connect to the edge, and that just keeps it a little more even. So the cake is basically done. Like I said, we will come in with a bit of with some fatter pens at the end to divvy things up a little more and add some shadows and whatnot, and that'll give a little bit more weight in different spots as well. Now, let's draw Noah wearing with an apron. So we're not going to see. This is for anyone who has seen the Noah webcomic. We know that Noah often wears a Kiss the Cook apron, but we're not really going to see the apron, so we're not too worried about what it says. I'm actually going to put that in. And for these, this here is not going to be in the actual coloring book, but it's going to be an indication to me when I Photoshop that I needed to do something different about how his wrist comes across. And I can always add the add smaller textures in Photoshop. As I certainly won't be leaving his face that open, for lack of a better word. So, we've got the 1.2 millimeter. So I'm gonna use a point 0.7 to do his eyebrows. And we're gonna give him kind of bushy eyebrows. Um, Basically so that we have some texture in there. Usually in the web comic, when I draw them smaller, it's just a single line, but here we're gonna do that. And we're gonna also do kind of the tongue split look. Well, not really split. That was more of a 90s alt scene kind of thing, but anyways. Now it's kind of tempting, and I've done this on other pages where I just kind of echo in the outline to fill in the area. But I think I'm going to do something a little different and give Noah a patterned shirt. Normally, I don't have him wearing a patterned shirt. Normally, it's just kind of bright colored of some variety, but let's see how this works. Um, Actually, I think what I want to do is make the pattern kind of a splotchy look, which, one could interpret as that he just got a whole bunch of icing on his shirt, but it could also be kind of a novelty print of some sort. And of course, we are then having parallel wavy lines, but instead of outlining Noah's shape, we're outlining a separate pattern, which just gives it a little different texture. Um, but I think his apron we will do this with. Hi, Dandy. Welcome to the stream. Trying to keep an eye on the stream as well as on the page, but sometimes I'm a little bit late in looking up and seeing when someone says something in the chat. So here we go. And yeah, I think that's already making it a little more of an interesting thing. Plus, then in other pages where I have Noah kind of drawn this big and I did just kind of outline the shapes of his shirt or whatnot, then it makes that also feel more, well, fresh, I guess, for lack of a better term, if that's not the case every time we have a large drawing of him. So now Noah is done. Well, his shirt is done. He's not done. After all, we got to do the hairdo. So when I do color illustrations of Noah, he's got a mix of grays and reddish browns in his hair. So kind of am trying to maintain some distinction in the different strands. So it kind of gives a sense of different tonalities or whatnot, you're like, "Hey, no worries." I mean, I think, uh, honestly, I think, YouTube lags anyways from what I'm doing. I think even by the time it hits YouTube at all, it's probably about not quite a minute behind anyways. And, some people aren't even gonna see this till, tomorrow or next week, so, you're still early. I usually do, actually with the streams after I finish is I save them as private, so that YouTube can do its thing of, processing, and then it's the next afternoon when I make them public. Just throw obviously, you guys are watching live right now, but throwing it out there for, future reference. If you're ever catch part of a stream and then wanna watch the rest of it, it'll be the next afternoon when it goes live again, so here, we're kind of assuming this is a slightly darker chunk of hair, so we are going to, put the lines a little closer, and then that gives a bit of, sense of different shades and tones and whatnot. Usually has one strand of hair like that. Noah would, of course, insist that his hair is perfectly natural, but his hairdresser would say otherwise. Makes sense. You like the drawing, though? Awesome, thank you, Dandy. Glad you do. I think I'm actually gonna flip Noah upside down because it just makes it a little easier sometimes. Actually had one, drawing instructor where the first day's homework was he said, "Everybody, your homework is to go and draw a circle, as quickly as possible, and then notice which direction you want it. Did you draw it clockwise or counterclockwise?" And he said, "There's no right answer except whichever direction you tend to go in, you may want to always kind of draw in that direction because it'll feel weird the other way." I say that, and I tend to go back and forth, but it depends how big, an area is. Also, with these pens, it feels easier when I do use a dip pen and ink, then it's a little, definitely one direction is going to feel a lot more and the others is gonna be a lot more smooth, so depends on your materials as well, but yeah, putting in all these lines also sort of shows, um, the direction of hair growth and whatnot in Noah. The I think when I was doing it as a couple times a week comic, initially I had Noah where his hair was kind of straighter and slicked back, and then like he was using the flattening iron a lot, and then started having him with his hair natural, and it was like super curly, and now it's kind of settled on these kind of bouncy waves. So probably because my hair is stick straight, so it's fun to draw hair that actually has some body to it. Now, in his face, I think we are going some of these lines we'll do kind of as contour lines, like in his eyelids. But I think then on his actual face, we're probably gonna do some weird stuff. like this sort of thing. Not that he's going around doing the Gwen Stefani thing with the fake Bindi sticker on her forehead, but more just that it makes for a more interesting coloring experience when the book is finally done, when there's patterns and not just simple outlines, I think. I guess I'll find out when the reviews start coming in. And Noah does absolutely love baking and pastry and stuff, although he's more of a pie guy. Had multiple installments of the web comic where he was conspiring about how he could win the blue ribbon at his local fair for the apple pie, with the story being that no man had ever won it. And Noah hasn't won it yet either. And that was a little bit inspired by one of the fairs. Huh. Hi, Luna Stars. How's it going? Welcome back. Um, so the story with Noah and the apple pies is kind of a little bit based on um, one of the fall fairs, not where I live, but kind of a city close by. In there, from the kitchen, like bakery, baked goods section of, of the hall judging and whatnot. They actually have a category which is cake baked by a man. So I had to laugh at the first time I saw it. Um, or no, actually, pardon me. That's actually my local fair has a cake baked by a man one. The one at the other fair that I'm thinking of, the Saanich fair, has has that in the apple pie. So they have apple pie baked by a man, and then the regular apple pie. So uh, good to hear you're doing well, Luna. I'm doing pretty good myself. Um, yeah, I've made a couple pies, but honestly, I am much more of a cake and muffin and cookie kind of gal. I think part of my problem was um, the last time I tried making pie, I used not that there's anything wrong with the tender flake, like the store bought. I'm sure it's fine, but it didn't seem to work as well for the pie that I was trying to make. Um, and I don't know, well, I guess I would just follow a recipe like anything else, but I always have this idea that like baking pie crust, like pastry, would be super complicated. So I've never tried to do it. Uh, I should try though. One of these days, I guess. I actually have a book that I got ages ago. It's by a woman. I'm trying to look at it because I'm sitting right in front of my recipe bookshelf. I'm in a little nook that's next to my kitchen. Actually, can reach the book. This book, I have tried a couple things and I've screwed them up, but it's one that the woman has a pie shop in Brooklyn, and she did this book of recipes, and I got it at Home Sense, which is Canada's version of Home Goods. Um, so I should give it more of a try, but definitely, I think for her recipes, just using the store bought pie crust didn't seem to work out very well. So, Grandma bought you an apple pie all for yourself. That's awesome. Dandy, thank you for the sub. That is awesome. I stream 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, and occasionally post some other videos. So, plenty to hopefully keep you entertained. But yeah, as far as baking goes, I am far better with cookies and cakes and muffins. One of these days I'll figure out pie, but I'm pretty sure that, like any other kind of cooking, the answer is just do the opposite of what my mother did. Definitely do the opposite of what my dad does. My dad doesn't really like things sweet, so a couple times I've had where he's made pie, but then he like cuts up the apples. He doesn't add any sugar or cinnamon. It's just honestly not good. He likes it, so like for him, his own supply, that's fine. But for me, I'm kind of like, oh no, I wouldn't want to use up your stash, Dad. I will eat my own baked goods. Noah's face is starting to remind me of, like, uh, what they describe in, like, the 18 or 1700s, there was a trend to, like, stick little black, shapes on your face to cover zits or, other sores or whatnot, in which case, I guess he has a lot of zits, but it's more for it being a fun pattern. So, like, "Show me off your fingers." I repeat, the pie is not that good. From what, Luna's saying, I also like Sharpie off your fingers trying to eat the pie. Oh, man. You gotta unwrap the, thing first. At least I'm assuming the wrapping was, like, on the Sharpie was on, like, if it's wrapped in, like, plastic wrap or something. So Dandy, asking about Baby Shark, not really my kind of thing. I've heard it. At times it's, bothered me, like, kind of been a song that I haven't liked when I've heard it. Other times it doesn't bug me, but, not really my vibe. Um, but hey, that's the fun thing. Everybody likes different music and, whatnot. And I know for a fact a lot of the stuff I like irritates the crap out of other people. After all, I've been known to, enjoy Nickelback at times. Back when I used to do college radio, I would horrify the other DJs when I, told them that. I think they all thought I was lying too, was the thing. I was like, "No, actually, I don't really care for their singles, like the power ballads I wasn't a fan of, but deep album cuts, some of those are real fun." Sharpie on your hands. Oh, I see. Whole steam on the pie. Yeah, that's the thing. Sharpie, all that stuff stains. I'm lucky. I don't have India ink on my arms today. Usually there's a big smear like right here on my forearm. Um, Definitely like been had painting classes, like acrylic painting class or whatnot, and then you take like a coffee break, you're trying to eat a snack. And like not get cadmium paint in your face after having it on your hands. Uh, oh, watch Baby Shark. Oh, is there? Okay, so is it like a TV show? Like I'm familiar with the song Baby Shark. Is there like a TV show that goes with it, or a completely unrelated TV show called Baby Shark? Or I mean, it's definitely the song is one of those things that's super catchy. Like it gets stuck in people's heads a lot. So, which honestly, that's pretty hard to do as a songwriter. So, more power to them for succeeding. So, this is a kind of a fun treatment. It's one of those things where I'm often, even though it's a coloring book and kinda wanna go unrealistic to, um, make fun shapes and whatnot, there's still something a little bit like, "I don't know how this is gonna work out," about doing, like, putting hearts on Noah's face or something like that, right? But it always ends up looking pretty fun once it's done, so, um, now to decide what I'm putting on in his background. I'm just gonna flip it upside down for easier access, but just had this vision of like if the wallpaper has like cupcakes or something on it. And that then means I gotta have the cupcakes kind of vertical. So, going to do that. Some of these are going to disappear, of course. Have something like the top of a cupcake and it's disappearing behind his shoulder, and you're not seeing the bottom, and it looks like a certain emoji, but we just kind of ignore that. And I will add in some more sprinkles as well on the background. Actually, I'm going to do those with a slightly heavier pen. Where's my point 0.7? Come on, I just had it here. So, well, we are an hour in on this one, and we are not nowhere near done yet. So every so often, one of these coloring page streams ends up being the whole 2 hours for a single one, which is totally fine. After all, last week we did three, so it kind of still evens out to two over the 2 weeks. So we'll see how far we get. Glad that so far the stream is going well, technically, knock on wood, because my last stream on Tuesday night, everything seemed to be working perfectly fine. And then at some point, the chat went dead and it looked like I was streaming to absolutely no one, zero. And I thought, oh, well, people come in and out. And then I kept going and all that. Figured, oh, well, it's a slow night or whatnot. And then the stream cut itself off at 8 p.m., so an hour and a half in. And I wasn't finished, so I started a new stream to finish the drawing. And then after I finished it and I looked at it, the first part, it had apparently stopped half an hour into the stream. I was like, oh, that's weird because I thought I was still live for another hour and a half, so oh well, it happens. Found a couple people mentioning similar problems on Reddit, this month, so whatever glitch it is, hopefully YouTube gets it sorted out because you know, anyways, so we'll have kind of this wavy line pattern as well going into the background. Here. Now, we're gonna repeat this pattern over on this side of Noah's head. Anyways, I mentioned the Tuesday stream thing just in case anybody who was watching at that point is kind of going like, "Oh, she just kind of vanished and didn't even say bye or whatever." It's like I thought I was still alive. The dog ate my an hour out of the middle of my Tuesday stream. So anyways, I just mentioned that in case anybody was here because there were a bunch of people in the chat and whatnot on Tuesday night. So I don't know what happened, but something happened. So So, good. I normally I stream on Wednesdays as well, and then I had a meeting I had to be at last night, so it's very weird around 6:30 heading to the meeting because it started at 7, going like, just feels so weird to not be sitting on my butt drawing right now. But we will be back with the Zombie the Destroyer stream next Wednesday night. I think I've got a couple more drawings to do of Zalmo's secret basement lab. And then we're gonna, so that'll finish up next week. And then we will have a new Zalmo project to work on the week after. Dandy, you're asking again if I like Baby Shark. It's not really my vibe. So I wouldn't go so far as to I don't hate the song, but it's not my thing. Yeah, it just popped into my head. A friend of mine who used to work at Amazon, well, at this point, probably 5 years ago, a little more than that, but I guess at this particular warehouse, they would kind of have a thing where they would take turns choosing the background music. Um, and I remember her mentioning a couple of her coworkers when Baby Shark first hit and was like really popular, they loved that song. So they would like pick it to be playing over the loudspeakers in the Amazon warehouse. Some people liked it and some people were like, "Ah." There is a market for pretty much everything. That's all I'll say about that. Okay. Like I said, you know, other people like it. That's cool. It's just not really my vibe. But I'm sure that, say if I was had been working at Amazon when my friend was working, like my song picks would absolutely irritate and annoy everybody else working there. So, you know, take my opinion with a grain of salt. So even though I'm gonna fix up what I did on Noah's wrist down here, I am still going to add some smaller divisions in his hand. Um, and then in the arm, I'll do that in Photoshop later after I kind of erase out these lines. I feel like I should do that with his ear just so it's not as big an area, leaving his eyes like the back of the eyeballs plain. So now, oh yeah, I need to draw the plate that the cake is sitting on, and then we're gonna take fatter liners and add some shadows and a little more dimension into the lines here. And then we will at least do the reindeer one. We're not gonna get to the third page that I had in reserve. But the video description does mention the whole thing um, about the reindeer minder, so we will deal with that. Now, I was mentioning earlier about my drawing teacher who talked about figuring out which direction it feels more natural for you. If you were, say, drawing a square, obviously I did it that way. Some people would want to do it that way. Some people do it like that, whatever. Whether you're drawing a circle that way, or I have to think I went that way, or like that and whatnot. But sometimes, whatever your natural way of doing that is, sometimes it actually works to your advantage to draw the opposite way because it'll put a certain amount of like shakiness into the line, and that sometimes that makes it kind of an interesting line, right? So something to consider. Um, just thinking, why don't I think I'm going to draw as if there's a ton of these round ball um, sprinkles on the table, or you could take it as the pattern of the table, whatever. But because there's some on the cake, it's going to look like These have fallen off the cake, but then it kind of breaks up the table expanse a little as well. And this looks weird because it's plain, but like I said, I'll do something similar to this after I've photoshopped it. So now we are going to go around, and sometimes it's going to be subtle, and sometimes it's going to be with much fatter, but we're just going to kind of do this sort of thing here and there. And it's just going to add a little extra heaviness and make some of the sprinkles kind of pop here and there. We're not going to do it with all of them. I might actually start from the fattest one down because like I feel like some of these round ones do kind of want to have that thicker line. And like the bottom of the rosettes, maybe. Because then that also gives them a little weight, which makes them feel bigger. And that's already starting to give a little bit more three-dimensionality into the cake. So, just want to and that also helps separate out you know, the drippy icing from the, lined icing and whatnot. And we'll also kind of give some of this to the underside of, this kind of leafy, ribbony kind of base texture, which helps make it, give a little more weight, like this is actually sitting on the plate. And then we'll also, for this kind of middle line, we'll do that. Somehow I missed those 2. Now, not every single sprinkle is gonna get this kinda thicker effect, but kinda do wanna put it in some of them. It kinda helps, I find, with stuff like this to kinda stop and look because, well, for example, because I'm monitoring the stream on my laptop, I can then sort of see a different angle by looking up, and seeing the camera angle versus, getting too, nitpicky, here, but what I'm noticing is that actually does look better on the sprinkles that have that, so maybe we are going to go and do this, little shadow bit on every single sprinkle. Which feels like overkill, but, it actually looks better when I do it that way. So, we're gonna go with what makes it look better. I mean, that's kind of the last thing that I have to do on this drawing, so well, aside from the Photoshop, but we'll worry about that later. So, actually won't take that much longer. For this sort of thing, you kind of want to think about where is the light coming from now. It's not exactly consistent, but generally speaking, light's going to be coming from above. So I'm not worried too much about left or right angles. After all, if he's in a bakery, there's probably like a whole bunch of fluorescent lights over his head, which is going to cast varying shadows. So, oh, the other thing I just realized that's actually not his wrist. That is a that is the icing bag. This happens every so often where, you kind of think about one thing and forget about the other. So yes, he's holding on to um the icing bag, but it's drooping down and covering his wrist. So anyways, whatever. Um Again, that is something we will deal with behind the scenes off camera. Forget which was that last week or something? There was something where I think it was supposed to be Noah's wife, where I kinda got mixed up between, like, her forearm and something she was holding or something like that as well, so it happens. Now, anything else? Alright, I think we are going to call that drawing done as it's gonna be for now, till I can Photoshop, but there we have a few different weights of line, and that kind of really makes those sprinkles look 3D, which is fun. The rosettes look 3D again. So sometimes it's just draw it in the finer liner because you can always make the line thicker. If you go too thick in the wrong spot, then you got to Photoshop it, which is annoying. So, anyways, that is our first drawing. Got about half hour left in my usual streaming time, but that should you may run a little bit late. But let's get on to the next drawing. So, and what I was just saying about starting thinner, I'm going to draw all of this in a point 0.7, and then we will similarly go back afterwards and thicken up some lines. So the idea here is Noah is working, doing some sort of like a seasonal job at like a Christmas village type of idea, Christmas market. Um, and he is, some of those will then have things like, a little Santa's workshop or whatever. And sometimes, if they're outdoors, sometimes they even have reindeer, which is what this one has. And Noah had the job of being the reindeer minder. Um, and well, what happened is the reindeer minded him. So this would be in his younger years. We had a couple weeks ago. We had couple different jobs of Noah in his teenage mall job era, where he was doing stuff related to Christmas, um, including um, doing Christmas gift wrapping at the local mall, and also um, decorating like the Santa's workshop area in advance of the little kids coming in to have their photos taken with Santa. So obviously, this is kind of playing off that same resume history, I guess. I'm gonna make this a puffy jacket afterwards, but um, I want to first get everything kind of drawn up. So If you're hearing buzzing, there is some fly that found its way into my house earlier, and it couldn't manage to find its way back out, so it is buzzing around and freaking out by the window. But when I had the door open, it would not go and find its way out. So, Darwin's got a Darwin, I guess. Do want to take a fatter pen right now and just kind of draw the hay bale. Kind of looks like a hay bale, kind of looks a little bit more like a log, but these areas are going to be fairly small, but again, someone could just color in the whole block of straw, no problem, right? Actually, I'm going to open my side door because maybe, just maybe, the fly will find its way out. Flies are stupid, so probably not, but, we'll see what happens. I don't know, it's probably not even picking up on the mic at all, but it's kinda distracting for me. So, just thought the reindeer should probably have a water bowl. Right. This one I'm gonna try and, pause and, like, add in, thicker lines for, like, shadows and whatnot as I go. So, I'd kinda like to add a slightly thicker line on the corner. It's gonna be subtle, but it'll make it just look a little bit like it's, fatter or kinda more like a square corner instead of a round, but whatever. And let's now carry on. And the fly is not noticing that the door is now open, but you know what? It's even for flies, there's a choose your own adventure kind of angle here. So it's not choosing a wise adventure, but it is what it is. Anyways, think I'm gonna keep, this page I mean, obviously, there's some areas that do have small areas, but I'm gonna keep it relatively simple because I think it's fun in a coloring book to kinda have a variety of difficulties. So, like, I would say the cake page is very complex, and then some will be a little bit simpler like this, you know? That way, if somebody's having, um, a day where they just kinda wanna color and relax and not have to, like, be, like, super, nitpicky about how they color, well, there's pages that are going to be like that, and then there's when they want more of a challenge, there's pages that are gonna have a lot more tiny areas and more details, so, um, I think it's good to kinda have both. The fly is going crazy over by the window. Actually, side benefit of having my side door open. I mean, I've got a gate that's locked, so this is like a little courtyard area, but I can smell the honeysuckle from the back garden. It's just kind of a nice bonus while I'm working. So we have that this reindeer has obviously, you know, kind of went to I don't want to say gore. Gore's not the real word. That's more when you're talking about bulls, but has gotten mad at Noah and like bent the head down and done like a scooping type of motion. Has got Noah stuck by the underwear on the horn, and now the reindeer has just decided, okay, well, it's snack time now. Let this dumb human kind of chill out and freak out, as the case may be. Excuse me. The sign that says North Pole is going to cut off, but that is fine. We get the idea of what it says. And of course, these will all be on the right side of, the right page on any spread. The left page is going to have little bits and pieces of a story that goes through the whole book where Noah's daughter Ursula has asked him about his past jobs. That's for one of her homework assignments. And then he's talking. So we have that story element going through on the left page. Um, and then the coloring pages on the right. So we will know that this is part of some sort of a Christmas village fake North Pole thing. Um, and people can kind of figure it out from there. I'm gonna kind of add a little bit line weight. I'm going to put in some lay of the land kind of lines as we go through, but um, and then there's some trees in the background as well. And for that, I'm going to kind of grab a reference from one of the earlier pages that we did, which was Noah as a tree planter, because I really liked how those trees turned out. So we are going to pull that up. So yeah, that's Noah as a tree planter in the north of Canada. So I'm going to just set this aside and kind of use a little bit of a reference there. The other, because these would be presumably fake Christmas trees, not real conifers, is that Noah, the page where Noah was doing Christmas decorations. So we did that a couple weeks ago. So we're kind of, the background trees are going to be kind of a cross between the two, except I'm not going to make them decorated. So let me take, just thinking, I'm going to take the 1.2. Kind of do that. Yeah, I can really smell the honeysuckle coming in from my backyard right now. I'm guessing the fly, the live studio audience, as it were, I guess doesn't can't smell that. Although, well, let's be blunt, it's a fly. It would probably rather smell garbage or be more attracted to the smell of garbage than to the smell of flowers. Weird though it feels, I'm going to do this upside down so I can reach a little more easily. I think that one I'm going to use an even finer line for these inner branches, um, just to kind of push that one a little further back, but I'll do this one first. The fly still hasn't figured out that the door is open. Again, I have no idea if the buzzing actually picks up in my mic. It's really loud to my ears, but it might not pick up at all. Like I might need to outline Noah's butt a little stronger. So as I blather, or I'm going to blather as I'm working on these trees. So tomorrow night's stream is going to be Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. Hoping to get 3 pages done, but certainly two. We'll have Ricky's cousin Darren's reaction to Ricky's submarine plans. And then we have a little side trip to Paris where Ricky's boss and his boss's wife are not, things aren't going well. We'll just put it that way. Um, so you should get through those 3 pages in the stream tomorrow night. And then, of course, next week, on Monday, we've got Miles Morrow's Pursuit of Happiness, and it is the Y spread, getting very close to the end of the alphabet. And just as a sneak peek, whatever you want to call it, Miles is looking at buying a yacht. And then Tuesday, we are working on this dude Noah, but on the Book of Days project. That will be the illustration for November. Um, Wednesday is going to be Selma the Destroyer with the Secret Basement Lab. And, well, next week, of course, on Thursday, we will be working on more of Noah's jobs. Um, One that we didn't get to tonight, that we're not going to get to tonight, is Noah as a movie extra. And we'll see what else we get drawn. So we've got Noah. Well, I'm going to put the side seam down his pants because now we've got the full jeans look. Maybe he's got some fluffy boots. Now I use the really wide marker to do that line. I'm going to kind of put some random wavy lines in a few places and then kind of just slowly fill it in this way. And then we will pretty much be done with this page. It's the good thing about kind of doing the shadows as you go along. It's not like you finish the drawing and now you gotta kind of go over a whole bunch of stuff again. There. So that was point 1. Now let's add in some point 7. The fly is going in the exact opposite direction that he should be going. But, well, it's the choice he is making. What in the hell? I can't actually see him, but he is freaking out. Suppose it'll be kind of odd if none of the buzzing sound has picked up in my mic and I'm just like randomly narrating about something that no one can hear. It's kind of like every so often I'll see like a video clip of like a stand-up comedy set. If it wasn't like a professionally recorded special where they like mic the audience and all that, if it's just like the comic has their friend in the front row kind of film it on a cell phone or whatnot, what can happen is you'll sometimes get comments where somebody was like, "I was at that show. I thought everybody laughed a lot more than this." It's like, yeah, they probably did. Thing is that a lot of times the only thing that gets put into the video is the feed off the board, which is from the microphone, and then it doesn't pick up the audience sounds. It just so that the video basically just has the sound of the dude talking, and it sounds like the crowd was just sitting there going like dead silence, but actually they may have been laughing their asses off. It just didn't get mic'd. That actually happened, I mean, many, many years ago, like 10 more than 10 years ago. I did a little bit of like open mic stand up in Vancouver, and I actually had taken like a comedy writing class. And then at the end of the class, we had a showcase at Yuck Yucks in Vancouver. And pretty much everybody who went up and did their set, like, people were laughing. Um, but however it got recorded, and I think we actually did have a mic somewhere in the back of the crowd as well, but that audio didn't get put in. So, like, it was somebody who volunteered to do the videos for everybody, and that was awesome, but the sound mixing was terrible. You know, so there was like, and I'm not just saying like, "Oh, my set was funny." Like, yeah, I got some laughs. I was not the person who got the most laughs though, but I saw the video of the person whose set got the most laughs, and it also sounded like nobody was laughing in the crowd, and it was just because it didn't pick up in the mic, right? Um, so anyways, just pointing that out. If you ever see like a reel or a clip of a stand-up comedian and you're like, "I think this is pretty funny. How come no one in the crowd is laughing?" It's like, well, they probably are. It just didn't the audio didn't make it, you know. Uh, and that has to do with microphone directionality and blah 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 blah. Actually, somebody I used to work with in the music bit. Well, actually, I didn't work with him, but he worked with. I was friends with him, and then he worked with people I worked with. But he got into doing a bunch of like producing comedy records for friends of his who were comics. And one of the things he did because he actually knew about sound was he would set up like two or three mics in different like one mic at the back of the room, dead center, and that would probably be an omnidirectional mic. And then he would put, you know, a mic on the left in the middle of the room and a mic in on the right in the middle of the room and record those as separate tracks. So we had 3 tracks of the audience reaction to get, you know, like a stereo effect of people laughing and you know, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously we'd have the feed from the main mic to get what the comedian was saying, and then he would make sure that he had the laughs really loud. Um, so anyways, point is, uh, kind of apropos of nothing because I don't know. I think that I don't know what's going on with that fly, but it isn't finding its way out the open door, and I'm talking about it and I have no idea if it's picking up on the mic at all. So, anyways, that's just my thing. So I think, because I am not well versed in reindeer anatomy for muscles and whatnot, but I think it'll be fine to kind of leave the reindeer more open, and then we've got more details here, and then the sky in the background has more details. So, just thinking, yeah, I'm gonna take the fatter marker and just kind of outline Noah's head so he doesn't entirely disappear into the tree. And there. In which case, I guess I'll do that as well as that. Now, so that's going to be what we've got for tonight because we're running a little over. Let's have a look again. So this is the first one we drew that took most of the stream. It's Noah as a cake decorator. And got some fixing to do because at first I thought, oh, that's his wrist, like this part of his forearm, and then I realized and I thought I had the angle wrong, and then I X'd out and blah blah blah, and then I realized at the end, no, wait a minute, that's the bag of icing. So we will Photoshop that connected to. You know what? Actually, just thinking that's the little nozzle tube. I don't know. Kinda leave it like that. So anyways, he's, putting some rosettes onto the top of this cake, and obviously he's, like, hunched down to get a good view of it, which realistically he wouldn't need to do. The cake already has some, like, runny icing, like the really liquidy kind, almost like, chocolate syrup or whatever. Um, it's got loads of sprinkles. The table has, like, a polka dot pattern, like, sprinkles. The background's got these cupcakes and sprinkles. And then Noah's face has hearts on it. His shirt has kind of splotches. So we've got a whole bunch of different things going on. I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. And then we have Noah as the reindeer minder at a Christmas village. And the reindeer is busy eating hay or straw or whatever. I guess it would be hay that they eat, not straw, but I kind of drew it more like a straw bale. Whatever. And he's got Noah by the underwear. Noah's just kinda gonna be dangling there. Mind you, obviously, in reality, I would think that that would be kind of give the, reindeer a headache, but, for comedic effect, we'll assume that this, reindeer, uh, doesn't get headaches. So, that's gonna be it for tonight's stream, and as I said, we're streaming again tomorrow night with Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, and 3 more pages from Ricky B. Goes to Sea, and then the usual, full slate Monday to Friday next week, 6:30 PM Pacific. So, thank you for watching. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for your patience, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye, Noah. Good night, everyone. Take care. Oh, and, also, if you're wanting to catch the beginning of the video, it'll be private for the next 24 hours or so for YouTube to process, and then I'll make it public again tomorrow afternoon. So, as my usual routine is. Anyways, see y'all real soon. Bye.